Today we're going to be discussing a few of the most fundamental aspects of the very beginning of your horse's journey into being a willing and trusting partner. If you have a guess as to what these fundamentals might be or might consist of, drop your guesses in the comments and stay tuned to learn. Alrighty guys, so in the previous few videos, you've seen Sundancer become curious about me. You've seen Sundancer and I begin to establish care. You've seen Sundancer eat his first bite of hay out of my hand, and you've also seen him begin targeting my hand. If you haven't watched those previous episodes, be sure to check out my full series of training a Mustang from wild to willing partner. In this session, we see that Sundancer is still a little bit skeptical to approach me, and he's certainly still a little bit skeptical to have me approach him. In the beginning, we definitely want to ask our Mustang to approach us and not vice versa. That will help their confidence with humans and allow them to feel more in control of their training and what is going on with them. At this stage in the training process, it's extremely important to remember that each and every day is a completely new day and a completely blank slate. Do not ever expect to pick up where you left off the previous day. This is an expectation, and by bringing expectations into our training sessions, we set ourselves up for disappointment because learning and training is never, ever, ever linear. It's never linear. There's ups and downs. It is a process, guys. Learn to enjoy the journey. Starting again at the very beginning also allows your horse to solidify the smaller behaviors leading up to the new behaviors you're teaching them. The very first step in getting Sundancer comfortable with being touched by a human is not touching him. It's actually having him touch me. What this does is builds his confidence and lets him know that I am safe. All I'm doing is holding out my hand. Once he touches it with his nose, I will click and give him his hay reward. And these are the basics of positive reinforcement in action. So if you'd like to learn more about positive reinforcement and what that means, see a couple of the earlier videos on positive reinforcement. This first step is extremely important for many different reasons. Number one, it's very important that your horse feels comfortable around you. If your horse is skeptical of you at all, that is going to come out later on in your training processes. So it's imperative that you get your horse comfortable with the main tool you're going to be using, which is your body and yourself. This exercise also continues building the care that we spoke about in episode number 2. As you can see here, I'm asking him to touch his face to my hand, not lip my hand. So I'll start shaping out that lipping behavior that he started to give me as we move on with this session. Now, this entire session just consists of this process that you see right here. This method of training requires patience and lots of repetition. However, it is greatly worth it in the end when you're rewarded with a calm, sweet, gentle, and willing equine partner that will do whatever you want to do together. In the next session, you'll find another example of how training is not linear. At the beginning of this session, Sundancer is a little skeptical to approach me. So I'm reverting back here to some of the exercises from episode 2 where I'm approaching, waiting for a stress signal, and then retreating once I see that signal. And here I'm just going to hold out the hay and be very patient and allow him to try and come over to me. You'll see in just a moment he will come over, as he was standing in the corner considering whether he would or not. He finally decides to, and once he does come over to me, you'll see him take that bite of hay and immediately remember, oh yes, this is a positive thing, and I really enjoy doing this with her because it's fun for me and I get to eat hay the whole time. So we're continuing to build that positive relationship and care even as we begin the very first steps into training Sundancer. In this clip, we're going to begin going over some of the basic body language that we need to understand in order to communicate with and train our horses more effectively. As you can see right here, Sundancer is considering what's going on, and as soon as he takes a step towards me, I'm going to take a step away and see if I can begin to draw him to me. He does take a step to me, so I'm going to click and reward that behavior. And even though he takes a step back, that's okay because he was still reinforced for coming towards me. These are the first steps to leading. That's right, guys. Leading begins before we even look or think about a lead rope or a halter. And here again, he steps towards me, so I'm going to go ahead and reward him for that. Now, I would like you to watch my hips for the next few seconds, and here you see them slightly shift, and Sundancer responds by stepping forward. This is because the human's hips can be equated to the horse's shoulders. We can speak to them with our hips just like they speak to each other with their shoulders. Stay tuned for a video discussing horses' body language and how they use their shoulders to communicate with each other. But for now, I'll just tell you that when a horse moves its shoulders away from the other horse and their body is curved towards the other horse, they're inviting that horse in. And so I'm replicating that by moving my hips away from Sundancer and inviting him to come into my space. Horses will do this often when they're trying to play with one another, and you'll see them bent around the other horse they're trying to play with, shoulder out, nose and hindquarters in, and they're inviting that other horse to come and play. And they'll be moving in circles around them usually. So it's very cool how we can replicate this behavior. And the inverse is true. If I push my hips towards Sundancer, he will respond by backing away. Because when a horse puts their shoulders towards another horse with their nose and hip pointed away, they're saying, get out of my space, back off, give me some room. So this concept is a game changer, and go out today to your field, stand at a distance where your horse can see you, and try this out and let me know in the comments how your horse responds to your hips. Please note that the Mustangs are a lot better at responding to this due to the fact that they are wild and they are brought up in a herd every single time. Most of our domestic horses grow up in stalls or they are in a paddock alone, and so they're not exactly going to be super responsive to this at first. But if you keep at it, they will learn this natural horse behavior, even if they've been isolated. As horse people, we always need to remember that horses speak to each other and to us with their body language and facial cues. Both of these aspects are immensely important to your training journey. And it's extremely cool to see how subtle horses can be with their body language to one another and to us once we really start paying attention to those behaviors. Now that Sundancer is standing closer to me and is comfortable with it, I'm going to return to asking him to target my hand and work on having his face touch my hand. Here you can see my hand is going to touch the middle of his face, which is a step up. If I were to ask Sundancer to come closer to me after he just did that, I would most likely make him get overwhelmed and he would choose to leave me. So that's why I'm returning back to my easy behavior of having him target my hand instead of asking for the more difficult behavior of coming closer to me. And right here, you'll see how I'm beginning to ask him to touch my hand twice before I click and reward him. Now, since it's important to vary the things that we're doing in each training session, I'll take a little break from face touching and work on a little bit of what I like to call follow me. So here I'm just taking a step or two, making sure my hips are away from Sundancer, so I'm showing him that I'm inviting him into my space. And once he takes a step towards me, I'm going to click and reward that behavior. As I said previously, this is the beginning of leading. This is where it all starts. If your horse cannot follow you without ropes, it's useless to try and use ropes to force them to follow you around, because they can always leave if they want to. They are big and strong enough, I promise. They can whip around, rip the rope out of your hand, and run off. So this stage is extremely important and foundational to the horse's success later on in training and throughout the rest of their life. We'll be working this little follow me exercise up into having Sundancer completely follow me around the pen as if I was leading him. Since I've worked on the follow me exercise for a few minutes now, we're going to return to having him touch my hand. And then we're going to move into me touching him and him being comfortable and calm with that. Here, I could tell he was a little hesitant, so I decided to reward him just for taking a step towards me and not necessarily require that he touch my hand. And here, I touched the middle of his face for the first time. All right, and now as the session progresses, you'll see that I'm beginning to touch him, gently stroke down the entire front of his face, and then reward for him allowing me to do that. As you can see, his eyes are still blinking, his ears are swiveling, he's looking around at stuff, so he's feeling completely calm with what's going on right now, which is the goal. These first touches are of extreme importance, and it's important that he is calm. Over the next few sessions, I'm going to be repeating this drill and the rest of the exercises you've seen in today's video over and over to really solidify them into Sundancer's mind. Now here you'll see a little bit of nippiness. I'm going to curb out this behavior by simply not rewarding it. This is where mouthiness and pushiness gets learned. If you accept that behavior and reward for it, that's the behavior your horse is going to learn, not to wait patiently while you touch them, as we're doing right here. And then I'll click and reward him when he's calm and still. This is a clip from the very beginning of my next session with Sundancer. I'm still allowing him time at the beginning of each session to investigate me, come smell my face, and just to reward him for coming closer to me. During this time, I'm watching for any stress indicators, and if he shows me any, I'm going to back away from him, give him his space, and let him come back into a calm, parasympathetic nervous system state. As you can see here, he's very keen on investigating and sniffing my face for an extended period of time. And this is where your patience is going to come in. It's imperative that your horse gets comfortable with you. If they're not comfortable with you, you're going to have major issues later on in the training process. And as soon as he's done investigating, we'll return to having him stand quietly while he allows me to touch his face, and then I'll click and reward for that behavior. That was actually my very first time touching the side of Sundancer's face, and from this point forward, I'll be working on expanding the area of his head that he's comfortable with me touching. Right here, you'll see that I'm able to touch his face twice in a row, and then I'm going to click and reward for that behavior. So all of the behaviors that we started very small with just him touching me. Now we've moved into me touching him, and now we are both extending the period of time in which I am touching him, and we are expanding the area that I'm able to touch. Positive reinforcement training is great for this process because we are slowly building a very foundational behavior that's extremely important for your horse's future. and we're making it a positive and great experience for the horse as we go. Our next few training sessions are going to include more of the same. Repetition, 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 extending the period of time that I'm touching him, the number of pets in a row, and expanding the area around his head that I'm able to touch him, with the goal of getting this neck tag off of him as soon as possible. Please stay tuned. As we build on these behaviors day by day, the goal is to have the easier tasks becoming easier and easier, Sundancer's confidence rising, and the new tasks to become easier and easier as well. And what this will do is have your horse willing to learn new things, enjoying their training sessions, and building a relationship with you all at the same time, and all frustration free. The goal is simply to see each of the desired behaviors getting a little bit better and better each and every day. And over time, this will build massive amounts of progress that both you and your horse feel great about. Slow and steady wins the horse training race. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and share with a fellow horse lover. It is my life's work to spread a new way of training and being with our horses that both parties can thoroughly enjoy and that can truly fulfill both horse and human. Thanks for watching.